Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. Hope everyone is doing well out there this morning and having yourselves a fantastic start to your Friday and a great week out there so far. If you're tuning in, it's later in the day. Hope you folks are having a great start to your weekend. Here to give you some updated information on what's going to happen weather-wise for your Friday. Of course, we dealt with some really nasty weather over the last 24 hours, especially last night, and a good portion of Ohio, portions of Indiana, Illinois had tornado warnings, and Arkansas did. Little Rock was under the gun last night. But I think the epicenter of the worst weather ended up being Ohio. And what's wild about it and unfortunate about it is we only had that 2% risk of a tornado in the state of Ohio, I believe. I don't even think the 5% risk of a tornado, from what I can remember, even extended into Ohio. So it just goes to show you, we got a lot to learn about the weather. The short range models did show supercells getting into Ohio, but it did not show as much instability, I guess, that ended up being there. And, it did show instability being there, but I just think that we had favorable shear in place for tornadoes, and that ended up unfolding, and the worst case scenario ended up unfolding, and we had a lot of damage, loss of life. So certainly, I was praying for you folks this morning. I know a lot of people are too, and if you haven't, definitely stop and say a prayer for the folks in the Ohio Valley this morning. They were hit hard last night. Areas of Kentucky were too. I mean, we had some tornadic storms earlier in the day, I believe, just up the road from Louisville. So just a wild day. And I mean, it continues to be active out there this morning. So we're going to break it all down for you folks, talk about, the severe risk for today, how it could increase, how it could overachieve again. Now, we know that one day isn't necessarily going to carry on to the next day and be the exact same as far as overachieving or underachieving. As far as severe weather, but today could be dangerous also. So we'll speak on it. We'll talk about everything at the end of the video. We'll talk about what's to come over the next few days very briefly. And we're not going to ignore you folks out west either. We'll kind of give you some updated information on the spinning upper low that's just kind of trapped in place out in the southwest. So we'll cover everybody just like we always do. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below so I can do that and so others can do so too. So, deep breath. Let's get rocking and rolling. So, as you can tell, it's an eyesore right here across the deep and mid-south. We got this nasty line of storms. We have flash flood warnings in southern Arkansas, areas of Louisiana. We have this area of rain in Texas with some storms already firing up. In areas of Texas this morning. We are going to have some nasty hailstorms, most likely in areas of Texas. And then we have this line of storms, like I said, sweeping across Mississippi, still moving through areas of southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, Alabama, starting to move over the Cumberland Plateau this morning. We already have had some tornado warnings like just northeast of Huntsville, just west of Chattanooga. We have some tornado warnings. A tornado warning up right now, as of right at this moment, around 6:30 Eastern time. Of course, it won't be there by the time this video uploads, but just kind of throwing this out there because, I mean, the warnings are popping off this morning. Severe thunderstorm warnings, tornado warnings. It's definitely more stable now up here in the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, where cooler air is really, and drier air has really just stabilized the atmosphere. We do have some rain up here in the Northeast, even some snow falling across Maine, higher elevations of Vermont and New Hampshire. But mainly a rain event up here. But like I said, there is some wet snow flying around. We still continue to have our snow event across areas of the Front Range. I think most of the heaviest activity is going to be in southern Colorado today. But I think it's still snowing in and around the Denver metro area this morning. And then we continue to have rounds of rain and snow, depending on your elevation, spinning around out here in the southwest. So that's what's going on right now. A lot of ongoing warnings and things like that. The Storm Prediction Center information as of right at this moment, and I say that because this could change, and I always want to mention that on the day of severe weather. This is as of right now. We have had some upgrades in the latest updates. We have a slight risk down here in southern Texas, where I think this is mainly driven off hail, and then we do have a slight risk ahead of this line in Mississippi and portions of Alabama. We'll have some tweaks with this. We have a marginal risk that basically extends all the way from the Texas-Mexico line all the way into central South Carolina. Okay, so 2 kind of bimodal slight risk and a large, long marginal risk. Okay, tornado threat today, as of now, 2 individual 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. These could be connected right in here. We could get a pocket of a 5% risk of a tornado issued somewhere. Not exactly sure where. I could see it being issued somewhere down into here. We'll see what happens. The wind threat, a 15% risk of damaging winds within 25 miles in any given location. That means there's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And the hail threat, that we could get some hail along this line, but the hail threat is definitely going to be there. I could see us getting an enhanced risk down here just driven off hail for a very small area of Texas. And we'll talk about why there's such a large hail threat in Texas today when we get to the south central frame. But not only do we have that 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger, includes areas like Austin and San Antonio, we also have that 10% hatched risk, which means there's a 10% risk of significant hail. That's 2 inch in diameter or larger. So another severe weather day today. I don't think it'll be as potent as far as the tornado threats, but there still will be a tornado threat and definitely a large hail threat. Flash flooding issues are ongoing right now, but this is really what's going on. Like I said, right now we have this slight risk in this yellow. That means there's a 15% risk of excessive rainfall, of basically rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance, and then there's a risk of that down here in southern sections and south central sections of Texas. So watches, warnings, and advisories. Severe thunderstorm watches ongoing right now. We have some warnings, whether it's severe thunderstorm warnings, tornado warnings. So I think we'll have some more severe thunderstorm watches issued kind of downstream, like in southern Alabama, southern Mississippi, maybe eventually even into like southwestern sections of Georgia. And I definitely think we will get some severe thunderstorm watches, maybe even some tornado watches down here in southern Texas later on. We have these winter weather advisories, these winter storm warnings that are continuing for the central and southern Rockies. And we still have some wind alerts, some wind advisories, high wind warnings up for areas of California and Nevada ongoing right now. Let's talk about the southeast. So as always, we'll take that broad look at things at first. We have this ongoing line of storms. If we take a look at it right now, of course, by the time some of you watch this, it'll be like 8:30 or something. So this is literally about 2 hours away from when I'm going to upload this video. There's a lot I do in that 2 hour period. If you're wondering, Mitch, why don't you upload immediately? Well, in the mornings, I have to take my girls to school, and then I have to drive to work, and typically I upload it there. And on Fridays, it's a little different. I actually mentor a kid at a local elementary school for about 30 minutes. So a lot goes on a Friday morning. But, I'm just kind of showing you this because this is the line of storms that are going to be responsible for all the nasty weather down into like here today. Okay, it's gonna get quite active, I think, in this area, and then of course Louisiana could be included in that too. These storms are very slowly drifting, and this area right in here will have an opportunity to destabilize, and the instability will build. So this is going to be the area of storms that's going to be responsible for severe weather today, and there's going to be embedded spin-ups in this line. So we'll take a broad look at this. These storms will sweep through. Now, I don't want to ignore my folks in South Carolina, even North Carolina, especially South Carolina. We'll watch what these storms do as they kind of get past the Appalachian Mountains, but we could have some storms making its way later this morning in the Greenville-Spartanburg area, all the way down to Columbia, Augusta. But I think this area right in here will be the worst severe weather today. As we start to get into this afternoon, the instability will rise in this area. I think we'll kind of have a gap in the convection in Louisiana. I think that's why we don't have a slight risk in Louisiana. We'll see what happens with that. And then models kind of differ on what happens kind of around this afternoon. Some of the latest HRRR model guidance has another line of storms that develops here in like eastern Georgia, western South Carolina. But these storms are kind of just chugging on down to the Gulf coastline. They could be severe for sure. And a closer look at them right here. As we're taking a look at this is the latest fully kind of run of the HRRR model. And as these storms kind of chug on through, remember that they don't really have anything that's really driving them to be very fast. That they're almost moving more so kind of west to east rather than like north to south. So these storms will kind of blast through the Birmingham area here in the next couple hours. And then as we are getting to about 1, 2 p.m., there's, pretty much everybody up here is done with severe weather. The atmosphere is cooled. It's become stable because of the rain. But down here, it's warming into the 80s. I mean, it's going to get warm and uncomfortable today. The humidity will rise, and then the atmosphere destabilizes down here near Hattiesburg, down to even Montgomery, Dothan, Columbus, potentially Macon, and of course, point south. And these storms will have a kind of some energy, some fuel to kind of work into to really feed them. So we will have this ongoing severe weather risk. I won't say all hazards. I don't think the hail threat will be big today, but I really think you'll have a decent tornado threat. Not as bad as yesterday for the areas further north, and a damaging wind threat in these areas. Please watch the southern boundary of this area. With a short wave moving in, definitely creating enough lift in the atmosphere to maintain these storms. And especially if any storms can get discrete, like see this one discrete storm in the panhandle, western panhandle of Florida, man, we got to watch. And certainly in Georgia, right in here. And then these kind of trail off, and we get into this afternoon, this really early evening. They head on off and get off the coast of the Gulf Coast of the U.S. and get into the Gulf of Mexico. And then I think they'll start to lose some steam. But, talking about the instability, you can actually see this. You don't have to be a weather nerd to really see this at all. You see how it goes from almost 2,000, well, it does, over 2,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE to nothing up here in Mississippi, further north in Alabama, Mississippi. That's because this is where the storms already move in and out and stabilize the atmosphere. That's why by the time you get past lunchtime today, Birmingham, Meridian, Jackson will probably be done with the storms just about. But you notice the atmosphere tries to get prime ahead of these storms. And if you notice, it kind of oozes south. And I'm telling you, this area right here needs to watch out today. A little skinny corridor of CAPE might build into South Carolina. We'll see what happens. We'll see if the atmosphere can kind of recoup from any kind of morning storms and another line of storms sweeps through. But that's that juice in the atmosphere that really builds in kind of on the southern, kind of just south of the main line of storms in this area. The updraft Felicity swap between now and about 9 to 10 p.m. this evening. This all works from north to south, basically. And you see these more highlighted colors down here, kind of north of Gulfport, Mobile, Alabama. I really want to watch this area. Right down into here. I know this is in yellow. Certainly want to watch this area later today. I think that this is kind of the region to watch into here. I have no idea why I drew those lines, but there they are. Looks a little better, I guess. But really watch this area. I would say Hattiesburg, even Montgomery. Just these areas that will have an opportunity to really, get into a more prime environment for storms. We'll just have a little bit more time to warm up is basically what I'm trying to say. How much rain could fall from this event? Well, this is kind of what's going on right now, right? But notice how everything extends southward, and we'll take it all the way to Saturday morning. It's about Saturday midday. We could get inch and a half of rain in central and southern sections of Mississippi and Alabama, and over a half an inch of rain is a good possibility for a good chunk of Georgia, except maybe southern Georgia and maybe southeastern areas of the state, and just widespread 4/10 of an inch of rain to over an inch of rain in areas of Louisiana. So a lot of rain with this is falling right now. I think the most rain that we're going to get from this is falling right now. So be careful in the deep south today. It's a tricky event that could overachieve. So don't let your guard down with this system. I'm telling you, I still say the ingredients are definitely there. They really are. You're lacking the kinematics somewhat, but they're definitely there. So anyways, the Northeast, dealing with the kind of some rain and snow in Maine. I think most of this will head on off by the time we get into lunchtime today. A little bit of shower activity still around southern Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. We could get a little bit of snow in southwestern Nova Scotia today. Depends on how much cold air you got. I know I haven't really been talking about you folks lately, but could get a little weather from the system that heads on off. Might get some storms in Virginia today. It's very possible. Maybe some storms kind of like in eastern Virginia, the Delmarva region, maybe some more so just showers in this area. And then we'll have another area of energy that moves into like the Adirondacks. Could be just cold enough late this evening tonight for a little bit of snow. Same thing for Vermont, northern New Hampshire. And then we'll wake up tomorrow morning with maybe just a little bit of snow shower activity that's greeting you folks in western Maine. Not a very active day in the Northeast at all. But the south central U.S., it's going to be quite active, mainly for Texas. And, we kind of already talked about Louisiana. But please watch out for these storms right in here in Mississippi. They could pack a punch for sure today. Even, like I said, I know we already talked about the deep south, but even southwestern Mississippi, these storms could produce some tornadoes today. But then just more so just stable rain up here. And we need this rain too. It's really good to see. Hopefully it's heavier than what it looks. Rain moving into these areas that got hit by these wildfires back in February. Luckily, the other day did not materialize. We had no outbreak of wildfires at all in the panhandle of Texas, from what I heard. Didn't hear about anything, so that's good. But you see these nasty cells down here in southern. We're going to zoom into this in the southern sections of Texas. Certainly going to be an active day. There's going to be a little bit of a cap in place. Warm air aloft basically prevents these updrafts from really exploding and taking advantage of all the energy in the atmosphere above this cap. This will probably limit, widespread storms down here, but we're certainly going to have them. And I mean, look at this cell. I know I keep going back to Mississippi. Look at this cell in southwest Mississippi. I'm telling you, could be a couple isolated severe storms in Louisiana too. Just don't think they'll be as widespread, but the ingredients will be there in Louisiana too. All right, we're going to keep this all the way through. These storms will continue in Texas, and then we'll get widespread rain tomorrow morning, which is good to see for Saturday morning in northern Texas, areas of Oklahoma, places like that. But let's take a closer look at Texas. Very active afternoon, evening of weather. I mean, we could already have some nasty hailstorms in southwestern Texas, just this morning. But what's going to happen here, guys, is there's more dry, stable, cool air in all levels of the atmosphere up here. This is going to be right up against a boundary that's going to separate that dry, cool air with very warm, moist air. I mean, it's going to be downright maybe hot down here in southern sections of Texas today. This boundary will help aid and, certainly an environment that's supported for some explosive thunderstorms. And here comes a nasty storm right in here developing midday already. And, here comes some more storms kind of working their way out of Mexico into the U.S. Mexico's line. And, I mean, just look at these storms right in here. You got San Antonio, Austin right in here. And, I just kind of want to mention a different area. And I do this every once in a while, guys. I know this is not professional or whatever, but I just hate kind of skimming over this stuff. But I'll kind of set this right here. I'm pretty familiar with Texas for the most part. But, Dallas up here, Austin right in here. We got some, storms that are capable of producing some 2 to 3 to maybe even 4 inch in diameter hail in this setup. I think the hail potential is more significant today in southern sections of Texas than it was in like Arkansas yesterday. Okay, but you kind of keep this going right, and come on. And we get some really bad storms down here near San Antonio. All right, down here kind of like, what is that, I think that's Interstate 35. Nasty storms kind of making their way down into this region. Then Houston's right in here, really bad storms west and northwest of Houston. Sort of this corridor right in here, which is right where you have that 10% hatch risk of hail. And I'm telling you, these storms will be capable because they'll be discrete. And even though there's not a whole lot of favorable kinematics in place, they will be capable of kind of producing almost their own low-level jet. The low-level jet will be kind of getting going the second half of this period, meaning this evening. So there could be an increased tornado threat as we get into later this afternoon, this evening for this area. This is around 8 p.m. These storms are really bad down into here. This is kind of out, I would say just southwest of the San Antonio area. And they continue, folks, and they, as they continue to form, they start to form more and more south because this boundary is settling in south. Therefore, the worst weather is kind of shunted to the south. And these continue, and we could get some more elevated storms that kind of get going up here, but I think they'll be lacking severe ingredients because it's more of a stable atmosphere. But down here, all the way into tomorrow morning, we're probably dealing with hailstorms. And we're probably going to have another period tomorrow where we're going to have some severe weather as moisture kind of begins to get back north. Therefore, the ingredients for severe weather begins to kind of shift north. Now, we talk about why there's such an unstable air mass in Texas today. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see this boundary, right? You see where you go from like basically zero Cape to rocket fuel down here. Rocket fuel, I like to use that term a lot when I'm kind of describing Cape, meaning you got a lot of fuel for these storms, and it's all just basically chilling down here in southeast Texas, southern Texas. So there's a lot of energy in Louisiana too for anything to fire up and take advantage of. You see how you have like these weird splotches in Louisiana? That's where a storm forms and basically eats up all the fuel around it, which basically helps to fuel these storms. I like to use that description or example. I hope that helps, but it's a great example of what's shown here on Pivotal Weather. But there's pockets of Cape exceeding 3,000 joules per kilogram in the mixed layer Cape. And, these storms will just eat up all this energy in the atmosphere. And then it'll try to rebuild tomorrow. It'll have an opportunity to rebuild sometime tomorrow afternoon, evening. The updraft Felicity swath, now I know this looks alarming. You see these very highlighted colors. But anytime you have discrete supercells showing up on here, the updraft Felicity swath is probably always going to be overdone. I think in this case, we'll have these storms that are going to be producing a lot of rotation. But are we going to get storms that produce that tight rotation and going to get multiple tornadoes? I think that we got to watch out for Texas, even though the large hail is the biggest threat. Some of these storms could take advantage of pockets of what we call favorable kinematics, really latch on to certain boundaries, certain things like that, really just micro things that, the models don't always pick up on. So I do think we're going to have some tornado warnings in southern Texas today. Please just be aware of that. And it's going to go, be basically down here in the southern areas of Texas. So the north central U.S., it's pretty quiet today. Thank the good Lord, because, it was very active yesterday, obviously, in the areas in the Midwest, the Ohio Valley. We'll have this energy that swings in kind of the base of this energy from Canada later this evening. Just too warm for any kind of snow. More so just rain showers up here for northern Minnesota. Could have a little wintry mix, maybe some snow mixing in up here in the UP and Michigan later tonight. But this does bring colder air in, as this is basically just this huge area, there's basically this upper trough of energy, this huge upper trough that dives down into the eastern U.S. with an associated cold front, brings in cold air. And we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the video. But this is definitely going to kind of bring in a new pattern, bring in a new pattern for the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes region tomorrow. We'll actually have kind of more so a wintry day tomorrow afternoon. This is, like I said, tomorrow afternoon, some snow flurries back here near the north central U.S. We got some snow flurries in the northern half of Wisconsin, the UP and Michigan. It's still mid-March. It's not unheard of at all. We can see this all the way into April. But we'll look at this lake effect snow here in mid-March. This really tells you that we did not have a very cold winter. We did not really ever get any solid ice cover over the Great Lakes. I mean, I'm sure there was weeks where we had more than other weeks, but as we're getting into tomorrow evening, we have a minor lake effect snow event that gets going, drops a few to maybe several inches of snow. We have to kind of look deeper into that as we get into the next video or so. But today is pretty quiet. Out west, really, there's nothing going on. The northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest. The only weather thing that's going on is in the southwest, where we have this upper low that continues to spin out here, bring a lot of moisture into Arizona, southern sections of California. We'll get some rain showers today in Las Vegas, kind of more so a rainy, wet day. It's not going to rain all day, but just on and off showers. Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, kind of the same thing. And of course, you get up in the higher elevations like in Flagstaff. This rounds of moisture, kind of rounding this upper low, will be in the form of snow. I think you'll get a little bit of a break by the time you get into this evening in Colorado. But as this kind of upper cutoff low sort of just continues to spin, it'll kind of drift a little bit further to the northeast. This will bring a little bit more moisture back into southern and southwestern Colorado in the form of some snow, and New Mexico, where it'll start to snow pretty good again in those higher elevations of New Mexico. And this will actually help aid in some moisture return for Texas, which is what we talked about. But this will continue to spin around, kind of plague your weekend for the Southwest. But, I think we could always use the rain in the Southwest for sure. And like I said, it could start snowing again tomorrow evening around the Denver metro area points south. So we'll watch out for that. But I know I don't have a really big update for the Front Range. I mean, I'm not sure how much snow you guys have picked up. I know I have some viewers from the Front Range area. Let me know how much snow you've seen, if it's underachieved, overachieved. I know that it's certainly achieved in the foothills region, where I saw a report of over 40 inches of snow just yesterday morning. But this is just moisture in general. You don't often see this much moisture in Arizona, but with this system, it's bringing some. We'll get maybe a quarter inch of rain in Las Vegas today, a little bit of rain and snow in southern sections of California. And then we're looking at snow with this. Of course, you get the Flagstaff, several inches of snow will add up, and the higher elevations of central and southern Utah. Feet of snow could add up in this setup. Southern areas of Colorado, this will definitely, you'll definitely add on your snow totals in these areas. Same thing with the higher elevations in New Mexico. A little bit of snow is possible. And I say a little bit. That's a little bit for you guys' standards. In the Sierra Nevada and in these higher mountain peaks and ranges of Southern California. So, temperatures today. I mean, look, you can see where this boundary is, right? See where you kind of, go from, like the 60s and 70s and a good chunk of the deep south to, you get down and kind of hug the Gulf coastline, get into Florida, the coastal sections of Virginia, the Delmarva area will even get into the 80 degrees a day. And just the coastal sections of the Carolinas down here in the southern areas of Texas. And then you go to the 80s, right? And then, I mean, look, you're in the 80s in southeastern Texas, southern Texas, but then you go into the panhandle of Texas and you might not get out of the 30s in certain areas. Definitely a cooler day in the Northeast compared to the last couple days, and just kind of regular March weather up here. It's still above average for a lot of these areas, but out west is starting to warm on up, especially for the immediate West Coast regions. I mean, you might hit 80 degrees in the California Valley out here. A nice day for the big cities in Southern California. And just in general, it's around average to above average out here for sure. Not quite as crazy warm all the way up into Montana, but it'll be a nice day all the way up into the 60s and certainly above average in the Rockies for sure, especially the northern Rockies. We'll probably even get some snow melt up here in certain areas. So, if we move forward, listen, Saturday and Sunday are weird days, guys. Saturday and Sunday are days that could increase in the later updates heading up into, to Saturday and Sunday. So right now, just a marginal risk down here in southern Texas and just a general risk of thunderstorms for the southern sections of the deep south, hugging the Gulf coastline. All right, not a big day, right? But we'll watch to see if we increase. But as of now, kind of the same pattern driving this. Stable air from this upper trough starts to move in, and just kind of multiple short waves kind of around the base of this trough to the south, and we'll just continue to have an uptick of thunderstorm development. Now we get into Sunday. Sunday's kind of a day that I definitely want to watch as moisture kind of begins to build back north. I mean, you got to think, guys, we're starting to get almost, we're getting deeper in mid-March. We're getting deeper in March. I mean, we're kind of flirting with April at this point. So it gets harder and harder the deeper you get into the year and you get away from winter, which we pretty much are now. It gets harder and harder to knock down that moisture return out the Gulf of Mexico. And it's pretty simple why. We just don't have as much cold fronts the deeper we get in March into April that dive as far south. So, you continue just to have a favorable environment. If you compare this year with the last few years, it's really been decently quiet across the deep south with severe weather. At this point over the last couple of years, we had already had multiple severe weather events. I'm always looking at my memories on my Facebook page, on my weather page, and it's always wild how many severe weather events we have in the deep south in March. But you kind of look down here and it doesn't really talk about a whole lot, but we do need to watch for any upgrades. I say it doesn't talk about a whole lot. It actually talks about a lot. They always do a fantastic job in the Storm Prediction Center discussing the probabilities of severe weather. But, what I'm saying is I could see Sunday increasing to a slight risk along the immediate Gulf coastline. We'll have to watch. Right now, just a 5% risk of severe weather. So we kind of move forward, guys. And, if you're not a cold weather fan, and I'm not really a cold weather fan this time of the year, but, this is kind of what we have to deal with in March still. See this big blue blob? This is going to bring some unsettled weather, and it's also going to bring a shot of cold air. It's just an area of lower pressure. And if you see this blue area right here, That is that pesky spin out in the southwest. That's our upper low. Now this blue area is going to dive down. And as it does into Sunday morning, could bring some energy associated with it. Most likely will. Could have kind of shortwave kind of impulses that ride through here. Could bring some rains across the deep south. Once upon a time, this upper trough, this northern energy picked up this cutoff low and, several days ago showed a major winter storm across the eastern U.S. That's not the case anymore. It hasn't been for like 5 days. But this will bring a shot of cold air. We'll have to watch for energy across the northeast and the eastern U.S. And when it does, it's probably going to bring some frost and freezes, even as far south as the southeast and deep south. And then after that, the weather gets weird. We got a lot to figure out after that. We do. But there's no point in getting too far ahead of ourselves. We'll talk more on this throughout the weekend. But as far as the weather associated with this huge trough that digs down, what are we going to get out of this? Well, I definitely think you see this area of green and orange as we're getting into Sunday morning. This is what will bring some heavy rains and severe weather across the southern Gulf states, southern sections of the Gulf states as we get into Sunday. We got to watch this. If this upticks a little bit further north, you'll have a better severe weather threat further north. But you see this 540 line, meaning there's a lot of cold air aloft diving down on top of the storm. This is really preventing this energy from really going north. So as we're starting to get into Monday morning, we got some lake effect snows ongoing, and then this shot of air moves in with associated cold front. This will kickstart some lake effect snow energy. Even could get a northwest flow event across as far south as like West Virginia. But there's no consolidated huge area of energy that gets going with this. That could change. We would need a dramatic change, but nothing too crazy. Now, we need to watch these lake effect snow streamers off Ontario and Erie. Could deliver some snow for sure, accumulating snow across New York State. Okay, but that moves through, but there's no dramatic systems. I mean, we'll watch this little energy right into here as it dives down. But what happens after that? We're not sure. We got some cold air. Looks like it's up here as we get into the last 10 days of March. We got this Gulf low down here. We got northern stream, southern stream. Kind of what happens, and all of a sudden it shows a big winter storm across the northeast next weekend. And the Euro kind of shows something similar. It's just something we have to watch, guys. But that's over 7 days out. It's a very unreliable period. But, if we kind of continue to chug on through March, get past that 10-day mark that I told you guys I wouldn't get past, but it looks like we do continue to have some big storms across the central portion of the country that have an opportunity to make their way to the eastern sections of the country. So we'll continue to watch that. We're always looking, and we'll definitely dive into that more throughout the weekend. But as far as this, cold air moving down from this lower pressure to the north, I mean, folks, it's going to get chilly. We're just not to the time of the year. You guys know we're not to the time of the year in the Ohio Valley, the northeast, the Great Lakes region, and the northern tier of the country where we can say, hey, warm air is here to stay. But we're also not to that time of the year in the deep south either, guys. As we're starting to get into Sunday, you'll already notice it's starting to cool down in the deep south, but it's really this. I mean, look at this. This is 10 to 15 degrees below average for mid-March standards across the mid-south, the Ohio Valley, the Midwest. So some chilly air moving down. And then we have this really chilly air that kind of dives down to the southeast. I mean, it's going to be downright chilly next Tuesday for areas of the southeast. Certainly got a shot of cold air on the way. And then it kind of remains kind of average to slightly below average for the foreseeable future. So we'll have to watch that. A lot of people have been talking about this cool down for kind of mid to late March. And this is it. This is it. Now, we could have more cool downs. Okay, but, just be careful what you hear out there. People will say there's, crazy Arctic air on the way or just major winter storms. I'm not seeing anything like that, but, there's a good chance that we're going to have some more crazy stuff that happens in March. You guys know March is a crazy month. But that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Stay safe across the deep south today in Texas. Please take all warnings serious. Could be a tricky day for sure. God bless.